Hi, and thank you for joining us today on the Road to Recovery. I'm Ronda Jackson, your host, serial entrepreneur, and small business advocate. And today's guest, thank you for joining us, Angela Proffitt, the CEO of GSD Creative. Thank you, Angela. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Oh, good, good, good. Well, for we are going to talk about our social media journey for 1 second, okay? So I am scrolling and YouTube decides that you, based on what I've been searching, were my next gift.
Yay!
And I'm watching your content and loving the knowledge that you drop about productivity, about business owner strategizing, and just pulling yourself up out of the murk and setting yourself on a path of success, essentially, right? Getting all the other obstacles and garbage out of the way. So I really appreciate about you. Reached out to you on Instagram and you said yes, that you would come on the show today.
Absolutely.
So for the audience that had the emerging and established entrepreneurs that didn't have the same journey that I did and don't know as much about you, will you share a little bit about yourself and GSD?
Yeah, absolutely. So, my journey is not your normal journey of growing up in entrepreneurship land, but I grew up in a really just traditional household where you go to college, you get married, you have two kids, you have two dogs, and you drive a Range Rover. And that is not the path that worked for me. And so by accident, I became an entrepreneur. I started my first business was an event planning company in the luxury wedding space. And then I got into doing design, which got me into marketing and sales funnels and automation and technology, which then got me into content creation. And here I am 2 decades later, really helping people to know how to be focused so that they can be present and be the best they can be so that they can GSD, which is get shit done.
Done. That's what we're doing today. We're going to start getting shit done. How about that? All right. So, one of the ways that I like to start the show is I like to ask guests for one word that they would use to describe now. What would your one word be?
Impactful.
Ooh, say more. Say more.
So, because I didn't grow up around a bunch of entrepreneurs, I didn't even know that you could really do your passion and do something that you're really good at. You hear people say, oh, you're gifted at that, and that you could actually make money, hire people to help you, and run a whole business around doing something that you love every single day.
Mhm.
And what really changed my life and the trajectory of finding happiness and being an entrepreneur and getting out of corporate America was finding people that were very impactful who played a role in my life that completely changed what I was doing, how I was showing up.
Oh, I love
And so if I can impact one person every day in whatever it may be, personally, professionally, if I can help someone GSD, that's the impact that's why I get up every day. It's why I show up every single day is so that I can help impact other people, just like other people have helped impact me.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that because I was going to ask you if you found that that was part of your journey. Because I hear you talking about mentorship, I hear you talking about some sort of coaching or deposits because you were in a area of in space that you were unfamiliar with. So, can you just for a second, can you tell us about selecting a mentor or selecting a coach and what that looks like?
Yeah, and even before I even started really understanding like what owning a business meant, because I just worked at my parents' church for 2 years and helped people plan their weddings and decorate their weddings for free. Back then, almost over 20 years ago, it wedding planners and designers and Pinterest and social media, none of that stuff existed. And coaches and consultants and mentors and online, like I didn't even have the internet at home. Like I was at the library and I don't even like books. And I don't like books because I'm not a good reader because I have ADHD. So when Audible came out, I'm like, and YouTube came out and I could search how to videos and I just couldn't soak up enough information. And I'm still that way. I love learning. I love bettering myself, how I can become a better leader. And so it's just been part of my journey of understanding that I have to put the defensive part of me aside And if I'm open to receiving different and new ways and new things, then I can really soar. And then others can come along with me. But I'm the girl who takes a lot of risk. And I'll be the first to fall on my face and waste a bunch of money. And, back then, again, there weren't coaches teaching us. And so in 2010, when I joined a group called Catalyst, and I only joined it because a friend of mine who was a lighting vendor, he would not shut up about this group. He's like, Angela, you're going to have a stroke before you're 40. Like, you work too much, you never sleep, you're saying yes to everything, and it's not all good things. And you need to learn how to say no. He's one of my best friends. And I'm like, I don't have time to do a networking thing or like a learning thing. And he's like, no, you don't have time to not understand how this can impact and change your life. And so I'm like, fine, okay, I'll go. And so we went to a little infos networking session, and I was open to receiving. And the guy looked at me and he said, are you coachable? Are you trainable? And I thought to myself, yes, I was a competitive
I heard,
gymnast.
no, no, no. I heard some hesitation. Man.
Well, I thought it was like a trick question,
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, of course, that's why I'm here, right? And so, but the beginning of that journey and me making time and creating the space to show up to that class for 4 hours once a week, and it was an 18-month commitment, was a big commitment for me. But through that journey, I was assigned mentors, and those mentors ripped me a new butt. And they're like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Like,
See,
just
I'm glad that you brought up the word commitment, because as emerging and established entrepreneurs, we're all in, right? We're
yep.
technicians, we're tradespeople, we have a gift that we want to express to the world. And in exchange for money or not, and that's one of the things that you help entrepreneurs with, is creating the systems and processes to make sure that all those things line up. And you have a productivity strategy that I really want us to dive into and talk about, because I think that those building blocks, just from a day-to-day basis, just even in a reflective sense. I know that in some of our pre-talks you talk about being in the moment, but if we could just kind of dive in, like, what's the first, like, because I know you have four of them. I think you mentioned that there's 4 P's. What
Yes.
P would you put on the ground first? Like, new entrepreneur, not even new, emerging and established entrepreneur, have no idea what GSD is. Which block do I put down first?
So the first block, well, first is like you have to have a foundation, and you as a leader, you're laying the foundation. It's like building a house. You don't just go put up a roof. You got to lay the foundation, build the house. So the first P is people, and hiring the right people. Also surrounding yourself with the right people, but it's really finding the right people that are going to help you and support you. And these are very specific people. They're not people that are like you. There's 4 different personality types, and all 4 are equally important. But you've got the risk taker, the entrepreneur. That's us.
Okay.
You don't need a bunch of those in a room together, because guess what? We don't GSD very good. We talk about it, but we don't walk away doing it.
But we can see it. We know what it looks like when we have it, right? Yes. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Then you've got the person who is like my right hand, who's going to be the supporter, who
Uh,
is GSDing, who loves lists, who loves being accountable, who loves marking things off. They show up and they're very loyal. They're not the risk takers. They're not going to go out and start their own company, but they are the most loyal, amazing CEOs, top of the company, helping support you. But the thing is, you got to let them do their thing too. Then you
Okay.
got the analytical, the research person who is more introverted, who just wants to be left alone because they want to do the research and do the numbers because it's a game to them.
Right.
And without these people, these are our accountants, our attorneys. I would be bankrupt. I wouldn't have a business without that person. And then you've got the people that are really amazing at customer service, who their happiness comes from making other people happy.
Okay.
And those are the people that are going to take care of your clients. So you really need all 4 types of personalities within your company. And as leaders and risk takers, sometimes we don't want to be challenged in our ideas. Not every idea is a good idea. Okay.
Yeah.
Listen to your team. So you've really got to have that foundation of the right people. Now, I did not start out that way. I started out hiring my friends and my family, and I don't have those friends anymore. But the best thing I ever did was I hired a business manager who taught me to start an internship program years ago. And it gave me, it's kind of like dating. It's like during an internship, you can tell if people are coachable or trainable, or if they really love the industry you're in. I'm in hospitality. You either love working with people or you can't fake that. I can't teach you to love to serve people. You have to show up that way.
So what
And
I hear you saying though is that there are ways that you can acquire these different personality types without necessarily a financial investment, because right now there are a lot of businesses and companies that just don't have the room for the stretch, like, this whole everything. I can't even itemize one specific thing, but in different things that impact businesses, but that you can use an outsourced accountant, to your point, that setting up an internship, which I think is an excellent idea, is a way to maybe vet that analytical or that right hand person until you find the perfect one. Or maybe you're training two of them and then you have two to pick from. So I'm liking that skill set and that strategy for how to bring those people in, and that it not being mother, brother, sister, uncle, cousin. So that is excellent, excellent, excellent. Thanksgiving might be a little different this year just because of you, Angela. Thank you for that one. Thank you for that one. So wait, but it sounds like in order to do this, in order to recruit and retain and attract these different type of personalities, that I as a business owner have to have some sort of process for how I'm going to do some of these things. So you've laid down gold nuggets before. Can you share maybe just a couple of key processes, or one that every emerging and established entrepreneur that's here with us today, that's on the road to recovery, needs to establish in their business?
well, and I love to say on the road to recovery because everything I'm sharing with you is from me. I don't like to call them mistakes, but I've made a lot of mistakes, and which I like to call opportunities and learning moments on how to make things better. And so with processes, I have a lot of business owners that we work with who are over 50. And if I hear one more time, I'll just give a millennial an iPhone and they'll figure it out. They'll figure out all my social media.
Oh,
I'm
wow.
like, no, it doesn't really work that way. Processes, it's a few things. If you don't have a process, then you can't delegate. And if you don't have a process to pass off to someone, not that you can't make it better throughout that experience when you're hiring someone, but if you don't give them clear direction, it brings people a lot of anxiety.
Right.
And then it can create a very toxic environment. And
So
so the number,
just will you share right there, because you mentioned having ADHD. I have
Mhm.
entrepreneur ADD. I think there's about 10 other people listening right now that have the same.
Yes,
So processes and clear direction aren't necessarily a strength in that category. So where do these processes come from if that's not your forte or your strength as an entrepreneur?
it is one thing that, so my background, what I went to school for, was to be a psychologist. And I had to learn EMR, which is electronic medical records. And so when I worked in corporate America, I was very forced to learn how to set up processes. And I saw how powerful it was. And so I learned that it was really important to set up processes. And let me say the key is in the cloud, processes in the cloud, having templates in the cloud. And so something about me personally is, in order to be a profitable company, I know at the foundation we have to have a process. So I'm really good at starting the processes and setting up the templates, but I have other team members who are way better at like finishing it and actually thinking it through for me.
Right.
But even before I had team members, and y'all, I was a one woman show for 7 years and I had 3 jobs. Okay. So not because I had to, it's, I went to school for something. I had a passion in events and I taught gymnastics. I was a competitive gymnast growing up, but I had to start really looking at my time and like what I was going to be doing with my time. And if I wanted to continue down that path, I had to hire people to help me so that I could allocate my time where it was important. So
Right.
the number one thing was we set up processes in the cloud. And this was very early on. I was a beta user of Dropbox. I was a beta user of Google Drive. And what I knew is in order to be productive with your time, you have to make sure that you have a naming category system for your clients, naming all your documents. And I knew that and I learned that from healthcare. And where I got that from was teaching the doctors and the nurses how to scan their paper charts
Right.
and having to name all the patient documents. So I had a good foundation and a good background. Now, y'all, I don't love doing it. Okay. Like it's not the funnest or
Yes,
sexiest thing in
you
the world.
do. Yes, you do. But okay, shameless promo plug. And I don't usually do this in the shows, but I do want to point out before any of you emerging or established entrepreneurs get turned off with, oh, I'm tasked with this job, is that Angela has a wonderful program that encourages you, that gives you the structure and the discipline. That's what I'm learning about it. That it's not the thing that needs to get done, it's somebody's checking, right? It's the let's not and say we did that entrepreneurs normally do.
Yep.
Or it's
Yep.
in the pile but it never gets touched. So I love that you have all of this program, like the things that you're sharing are in a structured program that we can participate in and have the accountability and have the templatized thinking that may not be our strong suit to get some of this done. So you've pulled in the people, and I love how when you even mention your processes, you're showing how you're utilizing those people that have the strengths that you don't. Then what about, talk a little bit more about the cloud, right? You mentioned the Dropbox, you mentioned beta and some of the other things. What's the importance of putting it up on the cloud versus just desktop computer or paper templates? Like, why wireless? Why the cloud?
Well, first, if something happens to your computer, and if you have a time capsule or a hard drive or a jump drive, I've done all that too. If you drop it or lose it or spill beer on it or coffee or water, it's gone. It's
Right.
toast. So I'm a little psycho about backing things up, but the goal for us is nothing lives on the computer. It all lives in the cloud because it's safe. You can go to any machine, log in, pull down anything from the cloud. And more importantly, if you love, I love my iPhone. My office is my iPhone. I can run anything I need, get to any client document with 2 clicks into an app. And that is really powerful when you can keep up with your stuff. But the key is on the back end on your computer to use it on your phone is to make sure that you have a naming convention that or a process that you and your team comes up with so y'all can find your shit. Like it's really important.
And for the
And
entrepreneurs that aren't as strong in the computer realm of things, when you mention naming convention, you're talking about a certain way that file names are all formatted. So if it's Joan, client first name or last name, month that they started the project, and the project number, that every client file is named and labeled that same way, right? So
correct.
not
Think of
just
it.
random file
Yeah,
names.
yeah. Think of it as like, back in the day when I did work at the hospital, we would have a filing cabinet. You open the filing cabinet, and there's manila folders, and there's first name, last name, just like you said, and it's all in alphabetical order.
Okay.
So think of it that way when you're setting up a Google Drive or a Dropbox or Box.com, whatever you're using. Is come up with that methodology. We put the date of the project or the event, like the due date. So just mentally, I like to look at my year in a snapshot,
Got
and I also know my capacity. So if we have a bunch of projects or events going on in a certain month, I know that I need to say no to something because I'm not going to be able to give it the attention that it deserves. So
right.
that's just something we do. So every client has a folder, and then within that folder, there's folders, and then there's documents that are named alphabetically in that folder. It also, we did a case study where, I mean, we used to get over 1,000 emails a day. This was a couple years ago. And we started, I call it potty train your brain because I try to make it fun. And we started to share each folder with each client. Now, some people think I'm crazy, but we were able to reduce our emails about 300 a day just by sharing
Right,
the
right,
Dropbox.
right,
And
right.
we did have to train our clients. It takes 5 minutes. I'm like, give me your phone. I'm going to put 3 free apps on your phone. And this is a shortcut in your browser with your, on your computer. And this is how you're going to get to your stuff. And it's all real time. And you never have to hit save. That's the beauty of it, is you don't have to worry if a document is going to get lost or you can't find something. And the second most important reason to back up your life and your business is you can't delegate things on post-it notes or on a paper planner.
But I try. Okay, so
So,
okay, but true story. I have the little pink one that gets put on the person's desktop screen. so,
yep.
so that's a no-no. Okay, I get it. Okay, I'm with you. All right.
Well, the thing is, like, if you're not good at it or if you don't love doing it, you shouldn't be the one doing it in your business. And so we use a free app called Todoist. And the reason we use that is because my team members, their brains wired very differently than mine. And it's important to me that the way they see things, that they like the way it's organized. And so there's some people they like Trello. Trello is more boards,
Yeah,
and some of my girls, they hate the way that looks. We've tried them all.
yeah.
And I mean, I'm a software geek, so I'll try anything. And then I'm like, no, we're not using this because it's not as good as what we've got already. So we tried Slack, we've tried Asana, we've tried them all. And so I asked my team, what works for you? What do you like? Because you're going to be the one doing it 90% of the time. I'm really good at making to-do lists, but I suck doing them. So outsourcing that part is really important, and being able to lean on someone who I can trust to follow up with our clients works a lot better, and it frees up my time and frees up my headspace so that I can move on to doing bigger and better things to growing the company.
I love that. In my company, I call myself the promise maker, and my team is the promise keepers.
I love it. That's awesome.
That's
I
kind of how I
love that.
brought that up. And I think that, and so what I also hear you saying, the reason I brought that up is that there is a level of accountability that all of these building blocks are now setting up in your company. And part of the accountability is the empowerment, right? That they have access, they can directly connect to these items, and that they're equally accessible by all. So I love that you've gone there. But now, brass tacks, okay? So a lot of the software, I know you can get a free version, you can upgrade and all that. How does all of the, at least the first three of the P's, impact our bottom line?
So the fourth P is profitability. And
Okay.
are you actually running a profitable company? Just because you love doing it and just because it's your passion.
Yes.
And there's so many women that I still know and work with every single day who have a real job, as my mom and dad would say. And then they have this side hustle because they're afraid. And it is scary.
Mhm.
But if you stop and think about it, you're not going to do it. You're going to stay where it's comfortable. And I knew that I could always go back. I had something to fall back on. And I'm pretty sure the hospital would have hired me back. Like, I wasn't bad at it,
You're
but I
still
knew that there was
employable?
something else.
You're still employable. After working for yourself for 20 years, you're still employable?
Well, this is my thought
Oh,
process
okay.
20 years ago. Like, I knew that if I jumped and if the entrepreneurship thing didn't work
I
out and if I
understand.
couldn't figure out how to pay my bills, that I could always go back to it. So that was my mentality, many, many years ago. And but what it taught me when I did step out and we had all these events, we had all these clients, and I was working so much. There were days where I would stay up 3 days in a row, not sleep. I would just go off of adrenaline. That is not healthy. That is terrible for your health.
And you'll
And I
cry.
started to get really sick. My hair was falling out. Like I was gaining weight. I just couldn't get it under control. And that's when I joined one of the entrepreneurship organizations, and they started to help me understand how to track my time and that I needed to hire a real accountant and stop going to the library to get retired accountants who were doing all of my taxes. And so I hired a real accountant, and I had been at this for a decade. And he sat down, and I didn't use QuickBooks. I didn't use any of that. That I don't even know if that was around back then. I had a fancy Excel spreadsheet that was in the cloud. And he ripped my numbers apart. And he's like, I thought he was gonna cry. He's like, you work so hard. You've done over 250 events just in that year. This was in 2010. And he said, do you realize that you have money in the bank and you pay all your people, but your business is not profitable. In fact, you've never been profitable. You're operating in the red. And do you know your ROI? And do you know your gross and your net? And I looked at him and I'm like, I don't know what any of those words mean.
Your face just looked like, speak English.
Yeah, I'm like deer in
Speak
headlights.
as
I'm
you
like, I don't know what any of that stuff means.
right.
So I learned really quickly that I had to do something differently because I knew that I could not keep saying yes and committing to all of these things. I had 12 employees at the time, and we were all just ragged.
Wow.
And so that was a real turning point where I was either going to probably stroke out or have a heart attack. Like, I'm not even being funny.
Right.
And probably have to admit myself to a psych ward for workaholism because it's a thing. And my mom kept saying, how are you going to take care of anybody if you can't take care of yourself? Like, you've got to go to sleep and you've got to eat right and you've got to take care of you. And I was just like, oh, mom, shut
So
up, shut up,
no,
shut up.
no, Angela, we have to pause for the PSA announcement that health is wealth.
It is.
Health is, I mean,
Amen,
yeah,
sister.
health is wealth.
Yes.
Yes. So the
Yes.
profitability, so knowing our numbers, because I know that
Yes.
you mentioned in one of the other discussions that women specifically aren't
Yep.
the strongest in the numbers part of things or just the attraction to it. But I also want to broaden that because entrepreneurs, when we're usually doing things, especially the ones that are doing things they love or something that comes really natural to them, it's very difficult sometimes to quantify that or put a value on it that we can turn into or that we can monetize essentially. So I'm glad that that's one of the building blocks. So we've had people, process, um, profitability,
Productivity.
and productivity as the thing. But the other thing that I did notice is that in all of those things that there's not any one thing that you said only the business owner can do, or that only one entity, or putting it in cloud, that there's a single form of it. So I love that you have this built-in trust into your system, right? Trust, and which sounds like it breeds growth because you can take the model that you're discussing with us to look at, and it's scalable and it's replicatable. Because if it's in the cloud, you can be in New York, New Jersey, Tennessee, and still be able to access that same formatting and everything. So I love that. I know that you have some really great tools and resources. So if you don't mind sharing those links, I will add them to the description box below. And you guys know where the description box is right below that little red button, the subscribe button. So if you haven't already, please do that. And then Angela, if someone is interested in your expertise, your programming, again, your resources, what's the best way to connect with you?
Yeah. Well, and I want to say one thing, y'all, when you're running a company, it's so hard to trust people. And
Mhm.
as you're building a company, you're going to find people that you trust and they are going to stab you in the back. They will. It's happened. And to learn to trust again is hard, but you can do it. And typically you learn from the previous experience, and the new people that come into your life and come into your business, it makes you an even better leader, and God gives you way better. So just because someone has done you wrong in the past, please learn to forgive and to learn from it and to learn to continue to trust, because if you don't trust, like you said, you can't build. So just wanted to make sure. It's happened multiple times, and again, it's okay. That breeds growth. When you are too comfortable doing what you're doing, I like to say, get comfortable being uncomfortable. So it's really important to trust and be transparent with your team. So onto the resources. You
Right.
can go to gsdsecrets.com, and those are some free videos that will teach you exactly some of the things that we do in the 4 Ps. And then we do have an online course called GSD Academy, and the website for that is thegsdacademy.com. Teaches you 8 pillars of the foundation of productivity and how to GSD to grow your company.
I love it. Thank you for those resources. And again, they will be down in the description box right below that subscribe button. Click the bell so you know when Angela's episode is updated and when she's back with us. But I need you to make this actionable. All right. So, what should every entrepreneur, emerging or established within the sound of our voice, what should they do today? Today.
Today,
Yes.
time block. Time block on a digital calendar
Mm,
and color code your priorities to make sure that you are saying yes to the right things. Start tracking your time.
All
so
right.
you can really show up.
I like that. I like that. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. And thank you for being here today. Thank you for sharing. This is just wonderful beyond. You just don't even know. I mean, because this is a gift to actually, and you mentioned this earlier, to be able to learn from someone else's mistakes, right? That's you've shaved like 5, 10 years off of everybody listening to this conversation.
Seriously, I wish I had this earlier on in my career.
Right. This I'm almost feeling like I met you 20 years too late. But
Oh, we're connected now.
but here's our starting point. Happy anniversary, Angela.
Yay.
No, thank you again for joining us on the road to recovery. I truly appreciate your time today, and thank you for all the nuggets.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really honored to be here.
Are you welcome?